So last week we were not able to meet because of um, the our Muslim brothers and sisters graciously offered us a holiday, so we were not able to meet. So we'll be tackling last week's session today. Last week we were supposed to go through responsive web design in CSS and the other advanced CSS concepts, especially revolving around layouts. Yeah, so that is what we are going to go through today. And we'll begin by simply defining responsive web design. Who can, from your own layman perspective, what do you think responsive web design actually entails? Just on the chat box, very, very quickly. What do you think responsive web design means? Anyone? Douglas says interactive website. Interactive in what sense? Uh, uh, a design that is user interactive. It is clean on all screen sizes, respond to size of screen, designing for all screens, can respond to commands given. That can also be a definition. Making your website display well on all screens. Very good. What else do I have? Making your website work well on different types of displays. Very nice. Making the web pages content fit on all devices. Very good. Making a website responsive in all screens. Lauren, you're using the word to describe itself, huh? Can be used in all devices, making a website fit every screen size, can adapt any platform in usage, that can be viewed in any device, irrespective of screen size. All very, very valid responses to the question, what is a responsive web designer? Very, very valid responses. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I can see you have at least an understanding of what responsive web design entails. So when it comes to web development, responsive web design is simply a modern approach to web development that ensures websites look and function well on all devices. It is not only the look, it also has to function very well on each and every device. That is what responsiveness actually means. Not only the look, but also how it functions. So very, very important that you note that. So how the website looks and how it functions, how the user will interact with it, not only by seeing, but things like scrolling, things like interacting with forms and so on and so forth. How does that website respond? So all of that is what we are defining as responsive web design. So we are going to go through some core concepts of responsive web design, including things like fluid layouts and grids, flexible images, and also media queries. Get to know and understand what they are and what role they play when it comes to responsive web design. So we've seen that with responsive web design, you're simply trying to design and develop web pages to adapt to different screens, sizes, and orientation. Remember, when you are referring to different devices, you are referring to desktops, laptops, tablets, and also other mobile devices. And when you refer to mobile devices and tab devices, orientation makes an appearance, and orientation can either be landscape or portrait mode. If you have a smartphone, I'm sure you know what we are talking about. If you have a tablet as well, the landscape and portrait orientation of the device display. So, or you need to take all of that into consideration when you are developing and designing your websites with responsiveness in mind. So, what is the ultimate goal of responsive web design? The ultimate goal of responsive web design is simply to provide an optimal viewing experience. That is when it comes to the look. Is you simply want to provide an optimal viewing experience to all audiences, regardless of the device they are using. So that is coming to the look. And when it comes to the functionality, you're simply providing them with the option of easy reading and navigation and functionality on their on all different devices. Okay, so that is what it entails when it comes to responsive web design. And as a developer, we've mentioned this is the modern way of developing websites and web pages. So this is something very critical and crucial in your web development journey. So what are some of these concepts? What are some of these concepts that um, what are some of these concepts that define responsive web design? So one of the most important elements when it comes to responsive web design is the viewport meta tag. This is a very crucial component when it comes to responsive web design. So with this particular meta tag, this one simply informs the browser how to control the page's dimension and scaling. Without this line of code, then your web page will not be responsive, no matter what else you might put in. Even if you put in CSS or JavaScript, without this line of code on your web page, then you can forget about responsiveness. So this one is very important. And it simply looks like so. I hope you can see my screen. I'm not sharing it. Oh, sorry. I hope you can see my screen now. Yeah. So this is the syntax of the meta tag. This is the syntax of the meta tag. That is the syntax of the meta tag. You begin with the keyword meta, followed by the name attribute, whose value is the viewport, and then the content attribute, and whose values are the width, which we equate to the device width, and with an initial scale of 1.0. So this tag is very important. That one is the one that informs the browser. You need to control these pages' dimension and scaling. So if there is any rule set that applies to the page's dimension and scaling, therefore be on the lookout for that. Okay, so that is the tag that informs the browser of that particular process and activity. Um, okay, so that one is the number one. When you're building using responsive web designer, that is concept number one that you need to pay attention to. Okay, concept number two is fluid layouts. Fluid layouts. Fluid layouts. Fluid layouts. So consider a scenario where you are pouring a fluid into a container. You'll see that the fluid will assume the shape and size of the container. Okay. So that is the same concept that we use when it comes to responsive web design, such that an element can be able to fit into another element's size and shape because of the fluid nature that we have defined. And how do you achieve this fluid nature? You simply achieve this by using relative units like percentages, relative units of measurement, relative units of measurement. So we have things like percentage, we have EM, we have REM, we have view, view width and view height. Those are what we consider and define as relative units of measurement. We have the absolute units, like what we have been using of late and mostly. Those are the pixels. Pixels are absolute units. Those ones are very, very precise because you can actually measure them. You measure them and the units are very, very precise. You have 100 pixels, that's an absolute unit of measurement. But with the relative units of measurement like percentage, it only takes a percentage of that element relative to another element or to something else on the web page. That is what we mean by relative layouts. Okay. So fluid layouts is another concept that you need to understand when it comes to responsive web design. A good example would be, let's say you have a container such as a div, and you want it to span only 50% or 60% of your web page. Then you would simply define the width using the relative unit like the percentage. Okay. But don't worry, we are going to showcase all of these practically. Number three concept that I would like us to consider is flexible images. Flexible images. So with flexible images, you're simply giving images the ability to scale within their containing elements. Remember, we had an issue when we were first displaying images where an image was either too big or too small, okay? So how do you mitigate that when it comes to responsive web design? You simply make the image flexible. You simply make the image flexible by playing around with also the relative units of measurement. But for the images, we mostly use the percentage, okay? We mostly use the percentage. So you can define an image and say, this image, I just want it to have, to take up 100% of the screen. I want it to take up 100% of the screen. So regardless of the image width, regardless how big or how small the image is, with that simple rule, the image will span the entire page and fit completely within that page without any overflow, so that you do not have to scroll to the right in order to see the entire image. So once again, this one you use relative units of measurement and specifically the percentage. You use the percentage for that. Use a percentage for that. And finally, concept number four is media queries. I think you had, was it Helen? I think Helen mentioned media queries. I think she mentioned media queries. So what are media queries? What are media queries? So this is also another important concept when it comes to responsive web design. These media queries are is a concept that will assist you to apply styling or styling rules based on a device's either the screen size, the screen resolution, or other properties such as screen orientation. Okay. So depending on what you are designing for, whether you're designing for a mobile, whether you're designing for a tablet, or whether you're designing for a large desktop, then using media queries, you are able to target those specific aspects of the device and be able to define CSS rules that will only be applied to those specific aspects of a particular device based on either size, the screen size, screen orientation, and so on and so forth, even the resolution. Okay, so using media queries, you are able to define such that you can have different displays. When someone accesses your web page or website using a desktop, they get a very different outlook or user interface rather than what they get when they access it through a mobile device. So using media queries, you can able to be to actually achieve that. And what is the syntax? What is the basic syntax of a media query? Media query looks something like this. You start with the at media, start with the at media keyword, and then you have your condition. You have your condition, and then you have your curly braces. Media queries are used in CSS. These are CSS. They are CSS based. They are CSS based. Media queries are CSS based. Let's get that clear for now. Media queries are CSS based. So this is the basic syntax. You start with at media keyword, then you have your condition, and this condition matches up to either a screen size, screen resolution, or screen orientation, or any other properties that can be changed with the media query. Yeah? So you have your condition. For example, a condition would be, I want to style for screens that have a maximum width of 300 pixels. That's a very, very small font. Okay. So you'd put your condition there. And between the curly braces is where you define your CSS rules. And remember, these CSS rules can be anything. Maybe you want to change the size of the images. Maybe you want to change the size of the font. Maybe you want to change the type of font. Maybe you want to change a background color. Maybe you want to change borders and padding and so on and so forth. You simply define all those rules within the media query. And if and when this condition that you have defined here is met, then the CSS rules will be applied for that specific condition. And we are going to see how we can achieve that. Okay, so let me just copy this and place it somewhere so that we don't lose it. So please open your Visual Studio Code editors. We are going to showcase these concepts and how you can achieve them before we get to the different layouts available to us in CSS. So please open your Visual Studio Code editors. Please open your Visual Studio Code editors. I want you to create two files. an index.html file and a style.css file. For your index, I want you to create a basic structure. I want you to create a basic structure with your doc type declaration, with your head section, and with a body section. For the title, I can say this is responsive web design. Responsive web design. So I just want you to have something simple like that. We will add things as we proceed. So the first thing and most crucial we said is the meta tag for the viewport. Content, we have device to device with. With an initial scale 1.0. So this line is very, very important. Please do not miss out this line, or you will miss out on seeing the responsiveness of our web pages. So once we have that, I can a H1 heading, but let me wrap this in a div container. Let's have a H1 heading and a paragraph, at least just one of each. And our div, let us give it a class. Let me just call this div container. Excuse me. So first thing we're going to do is showcase the fluid layout. We want to showcase the fluid layout. So in our style.css file, our styling file, we are going to add a class for our container. So we are going to give this a width of, let's say 60%. And let us center our div. Just center our div. We can also give it a background color so that it is distinct. We can also give it a background color. Then we can save our page. So what have we done? So far, we have created a basic web page template. We have our declaration block, our root element, our head section with title and the meta tag for the viewport. Let me just do a comment here. Viewport meta tag. For our body section, we have a div container with a H1 heading and a paragraph. And for our styling file, we simply have called up the class div container. We're referencing the class div container, and we've changed the width property, margin property, and the background color. So what are this one? We are showcasing fluid layout. Fluid layout. So I'll save all my files, save all your files, and then we can launch this using our live server. Yeah. Oh, we've forgotten something. We've forgotten something. Very, very crucial. Let me just open the chat box. Let me see who is attentive. What have we forgotten? What have we forgotten? Very, very good, Stanley. Link to CSS. Thank you. Thank you. Very, very good. Yeah, yeah. Very nice. Very nice. So we've forgotten our link to the CSS. We've forgotten our link to the CSS file. I was wondering why is our web page just looking ordinary. Very nice. Very nice. So make sure to get the reference very, very correct. Otherwise, your styling will not be applied. So very important. We have a title. We have a title. We have a title. Yeah, so I can go back to my browser. I can go back to my browser, and there I have, nope, my screen is big. So there I have my container. There I have my container centered to on the page with a blue, that is blue or cyan. No, colors have aqua. Or aqua. With an aqua color centered to the page, centered to the page. And as you can note, if you note, this page is a 60%, 60%. You said percentage is a relative unit of measurement. And what this means is this size, what the browser has done, it has taken consideration of the width of your laptop screen, or let me just explain as on from my point of view. It has taken the width of my laptop screen, taken that as the full width, and then calculated 60% of that. 60% of that is what you are seeing as the highlighted area. That is the highlighted area. That is 60% of your device screen. So as you can see, that is what we mean by relative units of measurement. The unit does not does not actually give you the actual size of the element. No, it gives you the size of the element relative to something else, relative to something else. And in this case, it is the entire device width. It is the entire device width. So what the browser is simply doing, it is interpreting what you have, the instruction you have given it. And since you've used a relative unit of measurement, it will measure the entire device screen width, and then 60% of that is what it will assign as the size of our div container. Okay? Size of our div container. So if you want to see the fluid nature of this layout, if you want to see the fluid nature, we said 60%. Or I'm the one who did not put a percentage. Or some of you are sleeping. This is 60%, or I'm not, my eyes are not working. It said 60%, eh? Yeah. So, once we do, want to see the fluid nature of this. We want to see the fluid nature of this. So on your browser, please right click on your browser and select the inspect menu from the context menu that will pop up. Navigate to the very bottom, you'll see inspect. Just click on that. Just click on that. Now, what we have activated is what we refer to as the developer tools. The developer tools. These are a set of tools that will help you leverage some of the browser's features in order to increase your productivity when it comes to development. It has various tools, it has various features that you can use, but there is one specific one that we are interested in, and that is the device toolbar. That is the device toolbar. The device toolbar is this one. I hope you see where my mouse is. This one. It is looks like an icon of a laptop or a desktop with a smaller icon of a phone, with a smaller icon of a phone. So once you click on that, it will launch the device toolbar. It will launch the device toolbar. And here you are given options. You are given options of changing the size of your display screen. You're given option of changing the device, the size of your display screen. If you can look to the left window, if you can look to the left window, we have dimensions. We have an option for it. It is a drop down. You have dimensions. And the first option is responsive. So with this option, you can change these values. You can change these values. You can simply change these values. You can simply change these values and the device screen will adapt accordingly. So if you note the size of our div container that is highlighted by the background color changes every time you change these device settings. Every time you change these sizes, then the size of our container changes based on the size that we have selected. Okay, and that is a fluid layout in practice. That is the fluid layout in practice. So if you do not want to automatically, if you do not want to manually set the sizes, you can select different pre-selected mobile devices that have predefined sizes. Let us see an iPad Pro, or let us see an iPad Pro. So this is what it would look like on an iPad Pro. And if you want to change the orientation, then there is this particular icon for the rotate. I think that one is, this one is landscape. This is portrait, sorry. This is portrait, and then this is landscape. You can change these. Let's do a Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus. We have portrait and landscape. You have portrait and landscape. Okay. Yeah, so that is an example of a fluid layout. That is an example of a fluid layout. When you use when what? I forgot it. When you use relative units of measurement. When you use relative units of measurement. So we said if you want to get to the developer tools, you simply right click on your web page. Simply right click on your web page. A context menu will pop up and then select the inspect option. Select the inspect option. It should load a page to the side or a page separate from your web browser, but you can still anchor it on the same page. And what you are looking for is the device toolbar. It is the device toolbar. Should be the second icon on the page, on the newly loaded page, should be the second icon. That is what you are looking for. For those ones on Mac, yeah, we had the same issue in the first session. So for you, you do not have the inspect option on by default. You need to enable it on the device settings, or not device, developer settings, sorry. You need to enable it from the developer settings. Just access the settings on Safari. If you're using Safari, especially, this one is not on by default. So you can enable it using just navigate to the developer settings or developer toolbar, go to advanced section, and then go to then there's a checkbox. You should see a checkbox for show develop menu. Show develop menu. So once you enable it, you can simply go back to your browser and right click and then select inspector. Those ones on Mac and Safari. So that is concept, the fluid layouts concept. Good, good, good. So if your styling has not yet applied, please note we had failed to link our external CSS file to our web page. So maybe that is the issue. So any other question? Any other question as I load these to a repository? If you have any other question, please feel free to ask on the chat box. Let me just load these to a repository. This is week 4. This is week 4. For session. Two. Yeah, week 4 was last week, yes, but we didn't have a class last week. So it's week 4 of the course. So we didn't have our classes last week. Yeah, so that is why I'm calling this week 4. Yeah. So if you want a link to the repository, that is the link to the repository. Um, that is the link to the repository. Yeah, with what we've done so far. Yeah, so that is an example of the fluid layout. That is an example. What am I doing? That is an example of the fluid layout. How do you showcase? Mm, flexible images? Same use of relative units of measurement, and especially the percentage. So I'm going to introduce an image here. Going to introduce an image. Introduce an image. Remember I mentioned that There's a website for free images. There is a website for free images, that is pexels.com. Uh, it's this one. So make sure you have an image. Make sure you have an image on your web page. Please make sure you have an image on your web page. Let me see. Let me see. What I have. So that is my image. If you can see my image, it is very, very large. I need to scroll all the way to the right in order to see the entire image. It is quite large. So to introduce flexibility to your images, you can use relative units of measurement. You can use relative units of measurement. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code editors. I want to select my image. What type of selector am I going to use? What types of selector am I going to use? On the chat box, what selector am I going to use? Yes. And uh, I need the specific one. Yes, it is IMG, but how would you define that? Or how would you define that? What selector is that? What selector is that? No one is giving me the exact answer. Element selector. Thank you, Martin. Very, very good. Element selector. Martin was the first correct answer. That is an element selector. You use the element name. Use the element name to use the element name to select an element in CSS via the element selector. Very nice, Martin. Okay, so far that is what we have. You select the image using the element selector. You're going to set the width to 100%. You're going to set the width to 100% and set the height to auto so that we don't lose the aspect ratio of the image. So save your file, then we can head on back to our browser. Save your file and then we can head on back to your browser. And if you notice anything, our image, you do not need to scroll to the left or to the right. It has been fitted on the page as it is. So just like we explained for the fluid concept, what has happened is the browser has taken into consideration the width of the device, and it is simply calculating 100% of that and then displaying the image. So this image will not go beyond, it cannot go beyond the parent container, and that is the entire screen. It cannot go beyond that. So that is why we have set it using the relative unit of measurement. Yes, yes, Silas. Max width and width, still the same, very, very little difference between the two. You can either use max width or width. They still serve the same purpose. There will not be much difference if I use either. So you can do the same, you can do the same, you can still inspect, and you will see the image will still be within the device screen. It does not go beyond the size of the device screen. Let me select iPhone SE. We can have XR. can have iPhone 12, iPhone 14, Google Pixel 7, Galaxy Z Fold, or we simply go manual and see how this one will look like. Mhm. So on and so forth. So as you can see, you maintain the aspect ratio of the image. You maintain the aspect ratio of the image. You do not have to now, I have downloaded an image. I need to go and edit it, crop it so that it fits on my website. No, we don't do that here. Eh? We don't do that here. So this one will help you maintain the aspect ratio of an image. Eh? You don't need to go cropping images so that they into fit into fit into your web design. Okay. I hope you've been able to, all of us, I hope we have been able to achieve that. Flexible images, flexible images before we go to media queries. Eh? Boniface, what is the challenge? What is your challenge? Eh? What is your challenge? What is your challenge, Boniface? And Daisy, what challenge are you facing? Maybe I can just update this while you explain your challenge. Let me update the repo and share the updated code. Yeah, this is the updated repo. You can get the HTML and CSS files from there. Okay. Why is yours misbehaving in landscape? Huh? Channel is big. I think XR. Yeah. Yeah. It should be okay. It should be okay. Unless you've missed something, it should be very, very okay. Yes, should be very, very okay. Pure HTML is not at par with the styling you have defined. Please check on how you are referencing your external styling sheet. Make sure the name is correct and the location of your external style sheet is also correct. Eh? Very important, very, very important. Eh? Landscape, we say there's this icon for rotate. That is how you change from portrait to landscape on this inspection on the device toolbar. I have shared a link to my repository. If you want access to the files, there you go again. And it's already up to date. Eh? It is already up to date. So that was maybe we can add another image. Maybe we can add another image, and then I will show you. You'll note something. Eh? You will note something. Let's add a different image. Eh? You can add a different image. So this is source. Take another image. Let's add, sorry. Let's add another image, eh? Add another image, eh? And I want you to tell me what will be the result of this image, eh? What will be the result? How will this image, remember, it is within the div container. How will this image be displayed? Will it will it fit into the container or will it overflow? What is your response before uh, so Manny says no, it will be wide. Charles says it will take the 60%. Francis says it will fit. Sammy says the same. Winston says it will fit. Okay, okay. Let us see. Let us see who will be right. Eh? Let us see. Let us see. Will fit. It will fit. And why is so? Why is it so? Why is it so? Angela has already answered. Chinelo Angela says it will take its size from its parent container. Very, very good, Angela. That is absolutely correct. It will take its size from the parent container. Remember, the parent container already has a set size. So whatever appears within it cannot overflow. It's like you're trying to fit you're trying to fit things into a room. You cannot fit things into a room that has a definite space. Eh? Once the room is full, it is full. You cannot fit anything else into that particular room. Same concept applies here. Since the div container has already defined a size, then whatever appears within it cannot go beyond that size. Eh? You cannot go beyond that size. Very nice, very nice, very, very nice. Very nice. Very good. So I think that does it for flexible images and fluid layouts. We can have a go at media queries. We can have a go at media queries and put a condition such that when the device width is a certain width, then we need to display, what can we display? What can we display? We can, we'll think of something, eh? We'll think of something. So we'll go back to our CSS file, and we're going to introduce a media query, yeah? We're going to introduce a media query. So media, so max width of 600 pixels. That one is usually meant for smaller screens. Eh? That one is usually meant for smaller screens. But remember, development and design is as per your requirements. What is your end goal? You as the developer or you as the designer, what is your end goal? So these ones are not set in stone, okay? This is just a generic and default value that is given in web development. 600 and below is considered a very small screen. So for these small screens that are 600 pixels and below, we want to change our div container. We want to change our div container, change the width from 60% to 100%. There's no need for margin auto because it will cover the entire screen, and we can change the background color. just for example, it's not a must. We're just showcasing how media queries work. You can change the background color. Uh, Gray. You can say gray. Let me add a twist. Let me change. It's supposed to be body. Put a background color on my body. Um, Maybe you can even change the font. Okay. So in my media query, my condition is the screen size with a maximum width of 600 pixels. That is my condition. So anything that is 600 and below, I want the following to happen. For my div container, the class div container, I want the width to change to 100%. And I want the background color also to change to gray. It is currently aqua. And for the body section, I want, and this one will not be possible. Let me change this to 80%. Let me change so that we can see the background color. I just noted if background for the div container is 100%, we may not get to see this background color. We can do that. Yeah, we can do that. I think 80 is reasonable. And also for the body, I want to change the background color and I want to change the font family. Yeah? Want to change the font family. Yeah? You also want us to change the image. It is possible. It is possible to change the image also. It's possible, but our image is an element. If it was a background image, we could have changed it. But because we are dealing with only CSS, we can only change what is definite here. The image is already defined as an element, so we may not be able to change it via CSS. You need JavaScript in order to specify, I want to change this particular image. So let us just do those changes, save that, and then I'm going to go back to my web page. So this is the default page. Let me reset it. This is the default page. You have our div with a background of aqua. You have your image there, and so on and so forth. We introduce the device toolbar. Once we introduce the device toolbar, as you can see, our changes have been applied. I don't know if you can notice the change in the font family. I don't know if it is noticeable, but that one has also changed. So our background for the div container is gray. A background for our body is light salmon, and the font has also changed. So I'll go to manual override so that we can see this. So the change point is 600 pixels. The change point is 600 pixels. Change point is 600 pixels. So the moment I change this to 601, then you see the change immediately. So media queries are a very, very powerful tool. Very, very powerful tool when it comes to responsive web design. You can define different interfaces for different screen sizes or different orientations and so on and so forth. Okay. Yeah. So any question up to that bit on fluid layouts, flexible images, and media queries before we have a look at layouts? Any question? Any question? Any question? Any question? So once you get a hold of these concepts, it will become very easy for you to curate very wonderful interfaces based on different screen sizes and orientations. Okay? Becomes very easy for you to do so. Becomes very easy for you to do so. So any question? Any question before we head on to the next section? That is explaining the position of the first and second image. The first image is within the div container. The second image sits by itself. It is outside the div container. That's why the first image is smaller. Size, I've changed the size using the device toolbar. I have changed the size using the device toolbar on the inspect menu. So I can save this and then let me just upload it to the repo. Let me update the repo just a second. Update this repo. Yeah, the repository is updated. So that is updated. Okay. So Israel Bankole is asking, can we change the image if we give it a class? No, 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 no. Nope, 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 nope. You cannot change the image if you give it a class. As I explained earlier, the image is already an element. The image is already an element. So unless you introduce JavaScript into the mix, you cannot change an element such as the image using CSS. We could only change it if it was a background image. If it was a background image, then we can change it. We can add us. We can add or modify a background image using CSS. Okay, so I think we can head on to the different layouts. And we'll be looking at two. Subdivided. I don't understand by subdivided. The two images are they are not even on the same what would I call it? They are not in the same position, so they cannot be together. They cannot appear in the same position. Okay, so we can go and we can have a look at layouts now. We can have a look at layouts. No, you cannot change the image. I think I've made that very clear. You cannot change the image using CSS unless it is a background image. I think I've been very, very clear. Unless you tell me how, using CSS only, because I'm sure that one is not possible at all. Okay, let's have a look at let us have a look at let me copy this. Let's have a look at layouts. Charles, you try it and then give me a solution. Since you think it is possible, you give me a solution for that. I want you to change an image using CSS. CSS only. And it better not be a background image. I want you to create an image element and I want you to change it using CSS. That is my homework to Charles Tebwa. I want you to try it and give me the solution. We're not speaking about a background image. Nope. Bethel Kiplagat, also your solution does not work. I want you to create an image element, and I want you to change it using CSS. That is my challenge. Do not mention background here. I want an image that is appearing on the web page to be changed using CSS. That can never happen. So yeah, let us move on. Let us move on. We'll stay on something that has no um we are on layouts. We are on layouts. So we are on layouts, eh? So there are two types of layouts that I would want us to look at today. One is the CSS Flexbox, and this one refers to flexible box layout, flexible box layout. So this one is a layout model that allows you to easily align, space, and distribute items within a container. And one interesting fact of the CSS Flexbox is that this one is one dimensional. This one is one dimensional. Eh? This one is one dimensional. This is one dimensional, takes a one-dimensional approach. So it helps you align space and distribute items within a container. It helps you align space and distribute items within a container, even when the sizes are dynamic, meaning the sizes don't need to be static. If the sizes are dynamic, then you can use the CSS Flexbox to um, space these items within a container. So we are going to showcase this. So we'll go back to, I'll just go back to my HTML file. I want to get rid of, let me get rid of this image. Let me just get rid of the second image. This. So we want to showcase the Flexbox. So we are going to create a div. I wanted to create a div with 3 divs inside it, 3 sub divs. Just create a div with 3 divs inside it. For the parent div, we are going to give it the class flex container. Going to give it the class flex container, and for these other divs, we're going to give them the class item. All of them will have the same class. So that is what I wanted to create. Now back to our explanation. So for the flex box, there are certain properties that you need to um, excuse me. There are certain properties that you need to consider when it comes to the flex box. And some of the main properties, one is the display property. Yeah? One is the display property. So with the display property, you usually set this to flex. Set this to flex. And what this does is it activates the flex box. That one activates the flex box. Number two is the flex direction. Number two is the flex direction. And this one simply defines how items are arranged. It simply defines how items are arranged. So it can either be row, which is the default value, or you can set it to column. You have column, or you can set it to row reverse or column reverse. So that one simply defines how items are arranged. It defines how items are arranged within the flex box. Mm. X direction. We also have another property called justify content, justify content. This one aligns items horizontally. You have another one called align items. You have another one called items. This one aligns items vertically. You have flex wrap, just like what I have done for word wrap. So this one um, allows items to wrap to the next line. Common property is the gap property. So that one simply adds space between. We're going to use all of this and see how we can achieve a flexible box layout. So go back to our CSS. Let's go back to our CSS. So we are doing flexible layout. Our container is a flex container. That is our container, our class, sorry. Flex container. Container. For our flex container, the first one we said is the display flex. Is the display flex. We need flex direction. Alt is row. Justify content. And set that to space between. Justify content to space between. Align items to the center of the page. We can just do a height so that we can see our flexible container. Something small, not something very big, and certainly a background color. We can do a flex wrap in case we have any overflow. And we can do a gap. Some of you are very busy on the chat, eh? And then you'll come to complain you did not understand, eh? Can we focus, eh? Let us focus. Let us focus. Yeah, that is the problem. You become so busy elsewhere, you do not focus, and then you come and say, I did not understand. Anyway, moving on. So that is our flex container. We can do some styling for the different items. So for our items, we can have a background color, some padding, and some margin. So the class is item. We can have a background. Say I want to gray. Can do padding 20 pixels, margin 10 pixels, And then the flex property, I can set that to 1. So I can save my work and then head on back to the browser. Head on back to the browser. Let me save my work and then back to the browser. And there I have my flexible box layout. There I have my flexible box layout. I have 3 items for now. And these items are equally sized and equally spaced within the parent container. Maybe we can start, we can add some content. Let me see. Let us see if we add some content. Add some content, how that will look like. Mm, yep. Need to change our height. Our height is bringing issues. Yeah, so these are evenly spaced. They are evenly spaced. They are evenly sized in terms of their width. This is the same width as this. This is the same width as this. The only difference is the height. The height. And because it is a flexible grid, the height remains flexible in that it will change depending on the content. So if your content is dynamic, then the height of this will change. The height of this will change. I wonder what we have when this is yep, just as I thought when we change the layout. Remember we defined what did we define? The flex wrap, the flex wrap property. So in the event that this goes beyond the device width, then the next item will automatically go to the next line. The next item will automatically go to the next line. So any question, post on the chat box as I update this repository. Okay, let me see. What questions do you have for me? What questions do you have for me? Let me see. Yes, flex direction row is the default. So yeah, this one is no need to have it. Yes, you are right, Victor Asieko. Mm. How I added content. I just copy pasted content. The lorem ipsum, I just copy pasted that. Space outside the container on the left is smaller than the space on the right in the full screen. Side. Yeah, that one is due to the current device screen size. You see, with the Flexbox, you are making the items all have they conform to the device width. They conform to the device width. When the device width is full screen, when the device width is full screen, the three items will each take an equal portion of the screen size. So this one is divided three times. But when we minimize that size, then what happens? Since we have flex wrap already turned on, what happens is any extra item that does not fit onto the one single line is automatically pushed to the next line, such that these two items will now occupy the entire space, but equally. If you measure the sizes of the width of these two, then you will find that they are both equal. That is why the size and the orientation and the position is changing. Remember, the keyword is flexible. Flexible layout. There's no place we have defined no, even we remove the height. There's no place we have defined an absolute size for this. There's no place we've defined an absolute size. You can as well add another column. You can as well add another column and it will still automatically calculate the space needed to display the 4 items or 5 items. And once you modify the size of the display screen, it will automatically pivot and give you new layout position for those um, items within the Flexbox. Evelyn is asking, should one start with creating websites for small or desktop screen? As a rule of thumb, we are usually advised to start with mobile first. You have a mobile first approach. Create for smaller screens as you graduate to bigger screens. That's a rule of thumbs. Rule of thumb. Can you try to create a nav bar? Not in this session, unfortunately. Yeah, time is not on our side. Okay, so that was a flexible layout. That was our flexible layout. That was our flexible layout. We can go ahead and have a look at two-dimensional layout. The repo is already updated. The repo is already updated. Or yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, the repo is already updated. We can have it do two. We can have a look at two-dimensional layout. That is the CSS grid. Before we close on the session, eh? So CSS grid layout. That one is two-dimensional, eh? So with the CSS grid, this is another layout. Another layout concept in CSS. With this one, it's a little bit different. Gives you much more flexibility when it comes to defining your layouts. In that, with this one, you can be able now to control rows and columns much more precisely than the flex box. This is gives you that option to do that much more comfortably. And with that flexibility in defining your rows and columns, you can now be able to define much more complex layouts. You can be able to define much more complex layout with this type of layout. Some of the main properties, common and main properties you would come across is the display grid, which activates the grid layout. You have grid template columns, which define the number of columns and their sizes. You have grid template rows, defines the number of rows and their sizes also. You have gap, you have gap, you have gap, add space between the rows and columns. Another common one would be grid, grid templates, grid template areas. This one is used to define the names of areas for the grid items. You have justify items, same as justify content. For the CSS grid, it is justify items. This one is used for alignment. Not horizontally, just aligning items. Yeah, so these are some of the common properties you would come across when you are dealing with grid. When you are dealing with grid. So we are going to showcase one. We are going to showcase one. We are going to showcase one. And what we want to achieve is a very, very common layout. I'm sure that most of you have come across when you have been browsing the internet. Let me just open something. I want to draw something very quick. I want to draw something very quick. I hope my screen is visible. Yeah. I want to draw something very, very quick. um, what we are going to have. So what I intend to have is something of this sort. So I intend to have a header. Intend to have a header. My next section will be divided in three. I'll have my menu on one side. I'll have my main section on one side and my right section there. And then I will have my footer here. So this will be my footer. This is, let me just, this is one, this is two, three, and five. So one will be my header, two will be my menu, three will be my main section, and four will be the right section, and five will be my footer. So we want to design something like this using the grid layout. And how do you achieve that? So let's go back to our HTML file. Go back to our HTML file. So begin with a div container. We begin with a div container. Give it a class. We can call it grid container. It's a class. So we have there are five. There are five. We have five. So I will give each of them a different class. So that is item 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's okay, we can give them grid. So our first one we said is the header. Second one will be the menu. We have our main section. We have our right section, and then we have our footer. Then we have the footer. So this is what you should have on your web page, on your HTML page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, header, menu, main, right, and footer. So on our styling file, this is grid layout. Grid layout. Start with the grid container. First, we need to activate the grid. First, we need to activate the grid. And next, we do the areas that we want. Grid template areas. Remember, we have 5 areas. We have 5 areas. So the first section will be our headers. Second will be menu, main, and right. And the last one is our footer. Last one is our footer. Let's see. The double quote. Then add a grid gap, 10 pixels, and padding of the same. Next, we are going to style the individual grid items. So we start with one, grid item one. This will do the grid area property. That one is the header. And color. Let us see. Yeah, you can just list these colors so that we have a distinction. 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 2 is menu. Number 2 is menu. So this one, it call. Number 3 is main. Four is right. Okay. Our footer. So save that, and then I can go back to my browser, see what I have created. Just see what I have created. What I had. Let me see. What have I done wrong? Oh, sorry. It's supposed to be 3, 4, and 5. Sorry. Yes, that is what I wanted. Let me change the header color. So I'm sure you've come across such a layout in some websites, where at the top you have your header, then you have a menu on the side, you have a main section in the middle, you have a right section to the right, and finally at the bottom you have your footer. Finally at the bottom you have your footer. So with the grid layout, you can be able to define such complex layout where not only you have control over the position of the rows, but you also have control over the position of the columns, the position of the columns, the position of the columns. Any question up to that bit? Any question after that bit? Let me update the repo just as you type your questions. The repo is up to date. The repo is up to date. The repo is up to date. So if you see at the bottom of our web page, if you see at the bottom of our web page, that is our grid layout. That is our grid layout. Let me just increase this size. So this is our grid layout. If you can see, this is our grid layout. We have our header section, our menu, our main, the right section, and the footer section. So if you understand this concept very, very well, then you will be able to create very, very complex layouts by simply using the CSS grid layout concept, which is two-dimensional in nature, giving you the ability to define both the rows and the columns. And remember, you can also apply media queries to this. You can also apply media queries to this. Let me just add that very, very quickly. You can also apply a media query to this. So at media, you can do max width is 600 pixels. See this is 600 pixels. For this one, I can do simple as that. Simple as that. Yeah, all this. This is all that is needed. So save that. Go to the back to the browser. We can do inspect. Let me resize this first. Can do inspect, and just like that, you have a very, very clean, responsive design for the grid layout where everything is collapses to its own line. Very, very simple, eh? Very, very simple. So Sharon is clarifying her question. In my previous question, I was talking about the margin left of the flex container being greater than its margin right. Flex container. The margin is the same. Mama, what are we? We are looking at two different things. Let me look at my code. And our flex container does not have a margin. Sharon, the margin comes about on the item. The margin is on the item, not on the flex container. But I'm assuming you are looking at the So is the page. I'm assuming you're looking at the space here, the space in between, eh? I'm assuming that is where the confusion is coming about. Yeah. So for the flex containers, margin is the space outside, eh? So yes, this to the left, we have 10 pixels. The only reason why this space is bigger is because we have margin here. We have the right margin for this. We have the left margin for this item. And remember, we also have a gap. We also have a section for the gap. Mm, Let me go back to the code. We also have a section for the gap, which is 20 pixels. So this also plays a role in that space that is between those items. Yeah. Okay. Which space? This space and this space is the same. What am I seeing? This space and this space. It is the same. It is surely the same. Or where is the difference coming from? This space and this space. They are the same size. Or what? Am I missing something, Sharon? You send me a screenshot of what you are saying because I don't see any differences in the spaces. The white space outside the flex container. White space. This space and this space. Uh-uh. They are not different. Remember, we have a scroll bar to the right. Do not mistake the whole space to be the white space. We have a scroll bar. This is the border of the scroll bar here. So this space and this space, it is the same. Leads are on the extreme right. There's something you've missed. There's something you have missed. Let me update the repo and then share it. There's something you've missed if your grids are on the extreme right. Mm, let's update this very, very quickly. The repo is updated. The repo is updated. Yeah, so any other question? I would like to end the session there. So having this knowledge, I would expect your next round of layouts to be very, very well structured, especially when using the grid container. It should be very, very well structured. All we've done is a responsive website with this big lot. We've been going through responsiveness. Everything we It's all about responsive web design. Responsive web design. The margins are not flexible. Remember, the margins are not flexible because we have used absolute units of measurement. So the margins will always be 10 pixels, 20 pixels, what we have defined. So the margins are not flexible. The margins are not flexible. These ones are definite. They are absolute. Yeah, so if there are no more questions, I will be ending the session there. I will end the session there. And that is the link to the WhatsApp group. And guys, please, 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 let us attend to our assignments and quizzes on the LMS. Um, yeah, I know we've had some issues in the past with the LMS, but I'm sure most of them have been addressed. If you're experiencing any issue recently, please reach out to me via email. My email is ab@powerlandprojectafrica.org. So if you're experiencing any issue on the LMS, any issue at all, immediately you experience it, shoot me an email, include a screenshot, and explain what is you are doing when you experience that issue so that we can be able to quickly troubleshoot and solve that issue. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the amazing questions. It's really good to see how inquisitive and passionate you are about development. And keep it up, keep it up. Ask those questions. Be passionate. Put in the effort. You will go far. You will go far. And remember, it takes a lot of practice. It just doesn't happen overnight. The internet is your friend. AI is your friend. So utilize it as much as possible. Do not copy. Do not copy. Try as much as possible to do it by yourself so that you can get to understand the actual concepts and how things are done. Okay. So thank you so much. We'll end the session there. I'll make the recording available once the rendering is complete. Otherwise, I will be seeing you next week when we'll be handling. Next week is JavaScript, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So have a lovely evening and thank you for joining the session. Goodbye.